Good afternoon, everyone. I present to your attention a set of plugins that will help you model the finish for your rooms in a variety of wall types, calculate skirting boards, and also compile a sheet of room finishes by the entire facility. In this example, we will look at two rooms numbers, 301 and 302. In your own project, there will be, of course, many more rooms, but in order to show the algorithm and technology of working on these plugins, 2 rooms will be enough. The plugin is voluminous and a lot needs presets, but the result is worth it. The first place to start is to set the parameters. The parameter setting is done in the tab BSAR setting button. When in the first time you open this plugin, we will recommend you click Use the recommended parameters Beams tab, because in that case you have all our recommended parameters and you will not need to adjust anything. Otherwise, it will be necessary to set up a lot of parameters, but you can, for example, change them to your own. The most important thing is you will need to go over all the parameters. Right now, I'm going to click Use recommended Beams tab parameters and have all these parameters set up. This setting is done for the free tabs such as Finish, Skirting Boards, and the Room Finish sheet. So in those free tabs, all the parameters are prescribed by which the plugin will work. There are a lot of parameters, let's go through them. The first parameter is that we are going to have added to the wall slabs and columns, and with the help of which we are going to determine what type of wall or column or floor we have. We need this parameter in order to separate, for example, plasterboard walls from reinforced concrete walls in order to do various finishes. Further, in the data blocks, we have values written in them that should be in this parameter for finishing elements, like finishing walls, finishing floors, or finishing ceilings. It's a column or it's a ceiling finish. Next, we will choose the parameter by which we will eventually run the entire work to put together the room's finished sheet. We recommend the use of the room number parameter, thus note that it's very important that this parameter for the rooms is unique. That's so there wouldn't be a lot of same number rooms in one project in that case. The calculation would be incorrect. You can use the system parameter number or name. If you choose name, you will also make sure that the name is unique. I'm going to choose number. You can use some parameter of your own that you have in the project. Let's choose just number. Next, we have 6 parameters open up in which the room number will be recorded in the wall finishes, ceilings, and floor elements. We've got these 3 parameters. Next, these are the parameters in which with comma the room numbers will be recorded in which we have this or that type of the finishing element. Let's go to the next tab. This is the skirting board. We've got just 3 parameters: skirting board name, length of the skirting board, and the sheet of the skirting boards. The name of the baseboard is a parameter of the rooms that you will manually type for the skirting board. The length of the baseboard will be calculated by the plugin. The room sheet will also be calculated by the plugin. If you, for example, don't want to include the skirting boards in the room's finish sheet, then you should untick that box. Leave it off and go to the last tab, Rooms Finish Sheet. There are a lot of settings. Let's go through them. The first parameter is the room sheet parameter, comma separated, in which you will have the same set of finishes element types. Further down, through a couple of parameters, we've got wall area, wall description, area ceilings, description of ceilings, and parameter is selected where you will have a description of that finish. If we want to include, for example, flooring on the bill of quantities, we'll tick that box and select the area parameters and the description of our floors. What follows is basically the same thing, but additionally, if we want to split our finished floors, ceilings, and walls on the finish and roof, it's needed in order to get the sheet of the rooms finished, where there will be the information on how many square meters you have, for example, separately plastering and painting. We're not going to put that out right now. For now, it's unnecessary. You can also include the calm finish with a set of appropriate parameters and finish and ceiling space with appropriate parameter set. For the room's finish sheet, you can set the weight columns. You can refer to each of these fields if you open a text instruction. Text instruction is available by clicking on this button. It will open up a text instructions and you will be able to figure out each of the parameters. We've set up all the parameters, click Done. Our next step is to prepare types of finishing elements. So, to model some kind of finish, you have to prepare that type first. To apply a certain type of modeled walls, we need to create it. Let's do that. Let's take the wall, picking like any wall. Copy that type, name it, for example, drywall finish. Let it be a 20mm thick finish. We can specify layers right here, materials, and so on. I won't be doing that yet, but you can specify whatever you want. Let us, for the details, specify a color. It's needed to make clear which finishing is going to be modeled. That's what we've done. Now let's move on. To fill in the parameters, we see 4 parameters here, each of which we need to fill in one execution format or another room's finish sheet. The parameter ADSK short names must be filled in. We have to fill it in according to the way we have it in the settings. So let me build outside of the building this finishing wall first. I have thread. Then I'll go into the settings again and copy that wall finishing value. And that's the value I'm typing into our parameter. So we also need to include a description of this finish. Let me do it. Just like the type name. I'm going to write that it's a drywall finish. In the description of the finish and rough finish, I'll specify drywall finish and drywall finish rough-in. If you don't make a room's finish sheet by splitting it down into roughing it up and roughing it out, then these 2 parameters are not necessary to fill in. Okay, we have the first wall type set up. Let's copy it and do another one. Let's duplicate it and I'll write that type. On the finishing wall, I have a called reinforced concrete wall finishing. Similarly, here in the parameters, we leave this value, but in the description, we change it. Give this type a different color, let it be green. The 2 types of wall we have prepared. Now let's do the same thing for finishing types of floors and ceilings. I'll take the slab tool, model it in small fragments and create a new type. Let it be the floor finish type 1. Click OK. Here we set the material and the thickness will be 50mm. In the parameters, we need to do exactly the same thing as we did with the walls. In the description, I'll specify the same value as in the type name, but you can describe all the layers of your floor. I mean every layer that you have in this type. As part of the example, I'm doing it in a simplified way. In the parameter ADSK short names, we need to type the same thing that we have in the settings. Floor finishing. In the description of the finish and roughing, I'll do the same thing as I did on the walls. I've got one type of floor finish ready to go. Let me copy it and make it into another type. Let it be type 2. Here I'm specifying the number 2 everywhere. Done. Now we just need to do the same thing for the ceilings. We are going to have ceilings modeled also with the overlapping tool. So I can copy the first type of flooring and turn it into a type 1 ceiling. With thickness, let's say it's 20 millimeters. In the ADSK short names parameter, we have to write a different value according to the settings, which is ceiling finishing. The first type of ceilings is done. Let's make another type. Done. Now we have all the finishing types ready for modeling. Let's see what else we have to do in order to do the modeling. We have 2 types of finishing walls, 2 types of ceilings, 2 types of floors. In order for the plugin to work correctly, it's necessary to specify which surfaces to make the certain finishes on this open plan. I've done color fills of different types of walls where the gray indicates reinforced concrete and all the other colors. Labeled plasterboard. The different types of plasterboard walls, but it's a dry wall. In order to let the plugin figure out what type of wall we have, to all these walls we need to make marking what it is. Plasterboard, some kind of masonry material, block, brick, etc. We'll do it with the same parameter that we have in the settings. This parameter is called ADSK short names. Each of the wall types we need to specify through the ADSK short names parameter. Let's start with reinforced concrete wall. Go to modify type. In the ADSK short names parameter, specify reinforced concrete wall. This wall here is the same type and this is a different type. We fill in that it's a reinforced concrete wall too. We have this type, and that's left is to square the dry wall. We've got the plasterboard walls represented different types. For all of these types, I'll specify the value dry wall. We still have some columns that need to be finished as well. For the columns in the parameter ADSK short names, we write that this is a reinforced concrete column. So, for each of our finishing elements, we specify what it is. After we specified some marking for each of the types of finishing walls, we can start. Doing the modeling of the finish, we have finishing modeling on a room-by-room basis. Accordingly, in order to run the plugin, you have several options. You can choose the facilities first and then run the plugin, in which case the plugin will work out the selected rooms or vice versa. Run the plugin and specify on which level to perform modeling of the finishing or modeling the finishes throughout the facility. You will get this window first, in which you will need to choose which rooms you want to finish. This window contains the following settings. First, select Work Format by all rooms in the view, all rooms of the model, or on all rooms at a particular level. Depending on what you select, there will be a set of rooms shaded here. So if we select all the rooms in the model, Then we have a sheet like this. Here we're going to have all represented facilities that we have. By those names within our model, it's worth saying that you can choose the room in the current model and the premise in the linked model. But if you choose a premise from the linked model, then you have to select that link. Now we are going to work just on the room in the current model. You also need to specify the stage if all of a sudden you have facilities in different stages. In our case, only one stage is used. If we select all rooms in the view and we select, for example, office unit, then all rooms that we have on this view named office unit will be under the operation of our plugin. Now I press cancel and we'll be right there. We'll still going to be modeling the finish of the one room at a time so that it's more visual and understandable. I choose room number 301. I go into the room finishing plugin. We can see what we have to select here. The first one is if we are going to be building wall finishes, we need to tick this box. Next, we have to choose if we are going to build one or two finishing walls and elevation. Depending on selected format, the table below is going to change. Let's do one by elevation. In the table below, we can see that we have this table representing some mapping of our finishing elements. Earlier, we filled in the gray walls as a reinforced concrete and the plasterboard walls as a gypsum. This is why we came up with the names of reinforced concrete and plasterboard. But separately, somewhere in some places of this room, there is a room divider. So we have that represented here as well. Now our task for a particular type of wall to specify what type of finishing wall we are going to cover it with. For reinforced concrete, I choose reinforced concrete wall finishes. This is the type that we use to do green. For the drywall, we choose drywall. Well, and for room dividers, we are going to choose drywall as well. Accordingly, if we choose two types of walls in terms of elevation, then we would have to adjust this for one and for the second. And then set the first and the second wall the appropriate elevation. So this format of working when we model in two walls and elevation is necessary for a tile up to 2 meters, for example. And above that we have some kind of coloring. Let's just do one for now. We've done this mapping. Next we are going to set the elevation of our finishing wall. Let's it be 3 meters. We can do the button we are going to have on the floor, but right now I'm not taking that box, but up on the ceiling. Accordingly, these ticks are needed in order to ensure that regardless of values typed in, the elevations of the finishing walls would be from floor to ceiling. We can also tick on the elevation of the room, but we don't need that because now we are going to build exactly 3 meters high. If after building you want the finishing walls not to become the boundaries of the room, then tick that box. I'm not going to tick it now. We've done all the setup for the wall modeling. Now let's make the settings for the floor modeling. We are going to tick this box. Here we select a particular type of floor finish. Earlier we added two types of them. We got them here. Selecting in our case, for example, the first type of floor, put its elevation marker. That is, if we have this floor at this level, there will be at level 0. Then we leave the row. But if you want that floor to be higher, we can fill in some other value. Let's say 15. Similarly, we can tick the by room elevation box. After we tick that box, we have a floor modeled exactly on the bottom of the room. We do the same thing with the ceilings. We put modeling ceilings, check marks, select ceiling type, put a mark, let it be 3000 millimeters. Additionally, the ceilings, there is a possibility this 3000 millimeters mark right here, it's going to be in the bottom or it's going to be in the top. Let it be across the top. After all the settings are done, click done. The finish is now modeled. Let's take a look, zoom in and see that where there is 46, we had plasterboard wall, we had finished it as this type of wall. I mean it's red. Where we have reinforced concrete wall, gray, we had green finishing wall built. Let's move on. Here we have reinforced concrete. Reinforced concrete, here we have the green and here we have the already started drywall, and so the wall was built in red. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that in type of the walls here should be set exactly finish, so that this finishing wall would not be inside the other layers. At this point we see that it's reinforced calm and it's finished exactly in green. Next comes the drywall in red, column is green, drywall in red, column in green, and so on. Let's take another look at the 3D view. So as we have one and the other type of finishing wall material is the same then. Here we have everything looking green, but if the material is changed, for example, any of the wall types, just choose a different material. For clarity, we will see that we have plasterboard walls. Finishing wall turned yellow, and where we have reinforced concrete, we have green. Same thing with the floors. We had modeled a floor that's called type 1. And we have it all over the room. Same thing with the ceiling. Let's bring finishing boundary up. And we'll see that the ceiling was made like the floor, which is 3 meters high. And it's type 1. So we have modeled the finish throughout our entire room depending on the type of elements being finished. That was room 301. Let's do the same thing with room 302. I'll go through the wall types first and I'll name them accordingly. For the blue wall, I'm going to specify that it's a drywall. For this, it's also a drywall. For the reinforced concrete wall, we have already the reinforced concrete value. The blue wall has the value that is drywall. The column has the value of the reinforced concrete. We don't have any other types of walls. Picking our premise, click Create Finish. Here, let's do 2 layers. For reinforced concrete, we'll choose the same wall just in 2 layers. For drywall, we'll do it that way, and for the room divider, we are not modeling anything. Let's change the floor types to a second floor type and the second ceiling type as well. We'll leave all other settings exactly the same. Click Done. When we see that we have plasterboard walls have built. Red wall, the reinforced concrete has green, and so on. Now let's take a look at the 3D view. We can see that we had 2 layers of wall paneling, the bottom layer to the 2 meters and the top layers to 1 meter. This applies to both the drywall and the reinforced concrete. Similarly, the floor has been modeled with type 2 and the ceiling also with type 2. So we've done modeling on our 2 rooms. This is the first part of our task. That is exactly modeling. If just modeling for you is enough, for you that's all. But if you want to still get the schedules for the elements to be finished, then move on. Our next step is recording the room numbers and the finishing elements. Let's take a look at some kind of finishing element. Let it be this finishing wall here. It has a set of parameters called room number and room sheet. Accordingly, the first one that we are going to do is to specify that this wall we have here refers to exactly the room 301. That's what we're going to do with the room number recording plugin. Run it. This is where we choose the format for working on the current model of the link if we have linked models with rooms. In this case, we only have the current model. We are going to choose a stage, that's the current stage. We are going to choose the format of the work. We are going to record for the whole object or for the sum level. And the choice is by the entire object. Next, we tick the boxes in what way we are going to calculate walls, floors, ceilings, column finish and ceiling finish. Selecting the 3D view on which we are going on to do the calculation, click Done. The plugin runs for a while and records the numbers. If we choose the wall, we can see that in this parameter we have recorded 301. If we go into this room and pick out some kind of finishing element, then we see that 302 is recorded here. Similarly, if we select the floor, we'll see that we have 302 recorded. Same thing with the ceiling, 302. If we are recording in each of the finishing elements one or the other number, what's important here is that this number to be unique within project. That is so that we don't have that in one project we have two rooms 301. We recorded the rooms, and now we can go to skirting board calculation. If in your settings you didn't tick the box for a skirting calculation, then you can skip it. But if you want to consider skirting, then it's absolutely necessary to do it. In order to count the skirting, select our room and parameter called skirting name. For each of the rooms, we must write the type of skirting board. Let it be PVC skirting board, both for one room and for the other. That's all we need to do for a skirting board calculation. The next thing to do is plugin. It's called skirting. We run it, select the all levels work format or by expressed. Let's go with by all. Checking whether we are going to calculate the width of the doors, whether we are going to put in commas, the numbers of room, that we have the same skirting boards, and whether we are going to put 0 in rooms where we don't have skirting boards. We are going to click Done. Now let's take a look. Let's select the room and we see that we have 76 meters recorded in the length parameter of the skirting board. Let's see if that's correct. The original perimeter of the room is 80.5 meters, but in this room there are several doors. So the value of 76 meters is correct. In the sheet parameter of the room sheet with the same plus, we have the numbers of the rooms, comma separated to where we have the same types of skirting boards. Since we have in the 301 and 302 rooms the same skirting board, that is PVC, so we have 301, 302 recorded here. The next thing we can do is we can record the sheet of the rooms and the same finishing elements. This step is also optional for the room finish sheet, but you could use it if you wanted, for example, to do a room finish sheet on different categories, that is separate walls, separate ceilings, separate floors. Let's look at it. For example, we have a red type of finishing wall, we have a finishing of the drywall, we have it in the room 301 and 302. Using the plugin Room Sheet Recording with that same type of finish, we can do that. Let's run the plugin. We select the format of the work, select a stage or all stages, whether we're going to hit sections, for example, and you want to separate them. If you tick the box, you need to select one parameter that will be responsible for the section. In this case, in the finishing element and in the room must be prescribed one section or another. In our case, we don't have it. So let's uncheck that box, type in the divider, in my case a comma, and click done. Let's see, now if we choose, for example, red type of finish wall, then the room sheet parameter, we see 301, 302, because that type of walls is in both of the rooms. The same is true for the green walls, as we have them in the both rooms. So we comma separated the sheet of rooms in which we have one or the other type of finish. That said, I'll point out if we choose the floor of 301 of the room, we'll have record 301 only, since it's located only in this room. Next, you can, for example, do the schedule on the walls. Put the parameter in here, and by that parameter filter only finishing walls. And then further, for example, add our room sheet parameter. And, for example, the area. Also add a wall type parameter and get the schedule. As a result, we see that this type of wall, we have this area. On this type of wall, we have a different area, and in this parameter, we have comma separated rooms in which we have a certain type of walls. The same schedule you can do for floors and ceilings. So you will get a schedule for the finishing elements. But if you do want to get finish sheet of the rooms where you have for each room the particular finish, then we move on. We've got the last plugin, which is called a sheet of room finishes. Let's run it. Here we need to do the following settings. The first is to select the format of the work all over the object or on a specific level. Let's have facility wide. Next, if you want to do a bill of materials for some sort of section, then we select this parameter. Select the value, and we've got the room's finish sheet executed for a particular section. Again, we don't have that in this example, so we uncheck that box. But if you do it by section, you need to have the facilities and the finishing elements with fields in section parameter. Next, we can put whether we are going to count the finish from the links. Assume that you have some very large facility that has a lot of links. And we want to count the finishes in all of our large facility. If we put that tick, then we are going to consider all the finishing elements from all of our links. Next, we're setting up the order of the room's finish sheet that goes up to walls, ceilings, floors, skirting boards, finish columns, ceiling, finish space. If you need to change the position, we do that here. Next, we choose a stage, and this is the last stage. Let's put the divider for the rooms, such as comma. Type in the name of our schedule that's going to be made as a bill of quantities of rooms finish. Let it be that way. Next, if you're doing some kind of typical floor, in the model, you model the finishes on the one floor, and yet you have this. Typical floors within your room in multiple units. So, for example, facility is a premise where the finishes are not changed on the floor. So you can model the finish only on the one floor and then select that floor. In our case, I'm not going to select it, but here is where you can specify the number of typical floors. Again, in our case, that's number one. If you're going to have a format of the residential work, you can do that. Here, next one of the most important thing is how we're going to handle the format of the work of our room's finished sheet. We'll be doing all room names separated by comma or for each room individually. What means comma separated? If possible, you'll have a set of rooms with completely identical sheet of finishes elements. That is, the same finishing walls, the same ceilings, floors, skirting boards, and so on. You've got these rooms put into one line of the schedule, and in the first column you have those numbers written comma separated. If, however, you strictly want to get a sheet of the finishes of the rooms on each of the rooms separately, then choose that value, and I'll leave it at that. Next, we select two types of text, for the header and for the body text. Let's leave it as it is. Click Done. The room finish sheet is done, and we have, first of all, a room finish sheet for each of the rooms, but since we've been doing the finishes for only 2 rooms, we've only got some data came up. What we need to do next is just filter the rooms we need. For example, we can do that at the description of the walls. It's not equal a dash. Okay, we have only 2 rooms left. Let's get this line out of the way. And we can see that we've got next schedule. The text type I chose is large, so it's why it's so big. It's needed to choose a little bit smaller. It would have worked better. Room 301, we see a certain set of finishing walls with a specific area, a certain type of ceiling, certain area, and the same with the floor finish. Next, we have the skirting board. For clarity, let's put the schedule on the sheet. We can see that in the room 301, finishing walls at reinforced concrete have an area 61.99 and on drywall 153.22. The ceiling in room 301 has the following area and corresponding types. The floor on this premise has the following area. Skirting board of that length. Same thing on the 302 room. We have the appropriate numbers. We ended up with this schedule. Let's do another format of the schedule, but with a split of the finish and rough finishes. Let's go into our settings. This is where we're going to take into account the wall split into finish and roughening, ceiling and floor split. Here we'll leave it as it is. Here, for example, we can make the width of our description smaller because we have it less. Let it be 50. Click Done. Run the plugin again, creating a sheet of rooms finishes. Click Done. And we end up with a similar schedule, but a little bit bigger. Let's do the exact same thing here, filtering as we did earlier. Put the schedule on the sheet and get a split of our walls, floors, and ceilings by finish and rough in. In doing so, note that we've already got written the name from the parameter and we have this filled in for finishing and floor roughing finishes, floors and ceilings. Here we also have the skirting board. So I have got a sheet of the finishes of the rooms already with a split of the finish and rough finishes for each of the rooms. To summarize, using the set of the plugins to shape the finish rooms, you'll be able to model your room finishes depending on the type of surfaces to be finished. Then, with the skirting board plugin, you will be able to calculate the length of the skirting boards without taking into account the doors by room. And with the rest of the plugins, you can get to the formation of the room's finish sheet as in certain categories: separate walls, separate floors, separate ceilings, or form a sheet of room finishes where you within rooms have written all the finishing elements being inside. That's it for now. Thank you everybody. Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and in the description of the video you can find the download link plugins with a free 2 weeks trial version. Bye everybody.